It's Thursday, June 28th. I'm Scott.
I'm Rim.
And this is Geeknights. Tonight we discuss sports, steroids, and spectators. Let's do this.
So pretty much everything interesting that happened to me today happened in the last 10 minutes of my day and then my commute home.
So before that, not exciting?
Before that, not exciting. Normal work stuff going around. Just before I'm about to leave, I'm talking to one guy who I'm working with more and more, because generally I don't have many social relations or interactions on any level with the vast majority of my coworkers. It's just the nature of my work. And I end up talking to this guy who I've been talking to bit by bit. And, I mean, it's turned out that he went to RIT way back and all sorts of little things. He's pretty cool. And I discover pretty much right before I got to go catch my train that he's an anime fan. And not just, oh, I've heard of anime, or, oh, I saw Cowboy Bebop, but yeah, second gig is old hat.
Uh-huh.
So, as much as I wanted to talk to him, after talking to him for a few minutes, I realized that I'd been lingering too long, and I now had 5 minutes to make it to the train station a mile away.
That's not gonna happen.
Well, I made it there in 6 minutes. And luckily, the train was slightly late. I get to the platform and I run up and I'm like, and I see the train coming in the distance. And I think, wow, holy shit, I can't believe I made it. Because I was still wearing my business clothes. It totally sucked. So I'm standing there and I'm watching the train come and I think, wait a minute, something doesn't look right. It looks like the train's going to the other platform. And then I look to the right, away from where the train's coming, and I see that on the little electronic display it says, track change. So now, I have to run a flight of stairs up across that thing, a flight of stairs down. I barely made it. Totally sucked. So now I stagger onto this train, completely covered in sweat, just dripping. It was awesome.
Do people on the train look at you funny?
Not really.
No.
No one seems to react to anything that happens on a train these days. I mean, someone could get up and just start screaming, I'm gonna kill all the whiteys and the blackies, and I'm crazy.
I think someone would say, shut up.
The most you get is an angry glare. It's so rare for someone to even tell someone loud to shut up. Usually they just glare at them.
We've had people shut them up before.
Yeah, every now and then.
It takes quite a loud mouth to get that. One time there was a cell phone lady who just wouldn't shut up. And then people were just like, the whole train woke up and started looking at each other. And then finally,
Wow, it's kind of like an ad hoc, subtle election where everyone kind of eventually elects one person who's going to be the spokesperson for the mob.
Yep.
So, get on the train, sit down, realize at that moment that I had left my 10-trip ticket in my book as a bookmark, that I just finished the book, so I left the book in my office.
Ah, the winner is you.
So the guy comes by, and I'm like, I forgot my ticket. And he says, it's cool, I'll hit you next time.
Yep.
And I was like, whoa, wow. Really?
And he came back and hit you.
Well, no. I mean, tomorrow I'm going to show him my 10-trip, and he's going to take an extra one off.
Oh, all right.
It was pretty cool.
Usually when they say hit you next time, it means they're going to go down the rest of the train, then come back and get the people who didn't get ticketed.
Yeah. But no, there's almost no one on that train for some reason.
Oh. Maybe.
I must have just been lucky.
Maybe because of the track change, everyone got fooled.
So then I'm coming home. We're on the train, and I get up, because But the station we're at, where we live, Beacon's getting bigger and bigger and bigger, and more people are getting on and off at Beacon. And there's 2 ways from the train platform to the parking lot. One is a tunnel that goes under the tracks, and one is this big elevated thing that goes above the tracks. And pretty much, you have to get up and stand there for 5 minutes in the train just to be close enough to a door to have a chance of getting to those things and getting halfway up them before the fat people get there.
I don't know what the fuck is wrong with these fat people. We really need to get some sort of system where, okay, anyone who's going to run can go first, and then the people who are going to walk slow as ass can go
very simply,
second.
Stay to the right or something. But
yeah, seriously.
It's funny, the train gets off, and you'll see, the 20 spry, young, cool people who push their way past the fat people and then run up and down this thing and get in their cars, their bikes, and get away before all the fat people get there. When I say fat people, I mean a good 70% of the people on this train.
Oh, yeah, they're if they're not fat, they might be old.
They're at least overweight. They're almost all overweight.
Or the people with the wheelie luggage, or
I don't get the people with the wheelie luggage because they're carrying less than I am.
Or some people, they have the wheelie luggage that's just full of lots of unnecessary shit that they don't need that shit. And then you got people with like a baby in a stroller and all these people carrying too much shit need to get out of the way of me with my little bag.
Damn baby.
That's right.
But it's funny because you see all the smart, quick people run and get to this thing and get up and get out of their way and get out before the traffic and the fat people and the mayhem. But if you don't get there before this crush of fat people gets there, you basically have to stand there forever while fat people very slowly trudge up these steps, huffing and puffing the whole way, and then just kind of block the whole thing, huffing and puffing their way back down. Yeah. But, so I'm standing on the train.
It shouldn't be illegal for me to push those fat people down the stairs.
How are you going to push them? Their momentum alone will keep them stationary for a good 5 minutes.
Well, you see, I just go, and if I can get past them, I just lean backwards. That'll add just enough force that they won't be able to make one step up. So their only choice will be to take a step down or stand still. And I'm sure they'll just be, as soon as if they don't lower their center of gravity, they'll topple pretty easily.
I don't know, Scott. Nothing moves the blob. Except Cyclops, who moves him very easily.
You just push one button, they falls down.
Nothing moves the... nothing moves the... And then you win.
Yep.
So, I'm standing there in front of all the fat people. Though they're pressing in, I can see them, like, crushed up against the door to the area between the cars, like trying to get in and get in front of me so they can be all slow. And then the train slows down, and we're not at the station yet. And then it gets real slow.
The train slows down sometimes.
No.
It speeds up.
It really slows down. And there's just been a big thunderstorm, so I'm thinking, crap. Now I'm going to be stuck here on the train with fat people in every direction. There's no way to get out of where I'm standing now, because the fat people can't move. And, people start grumbling because it's all, the cool, young, lithe people standing in this area trying to get ahead. So they're all like, train delayed. Did something fall on the tracks? This totally sucks. Grumble, rabble. And then someone says, oh, man, look out the window. So we all look to the right, and there's the road I normally drive home on there. And there's a gigantic accident consisting of one car that has completely blocked the road in both directions.
The winner is that guy.
Some big SUV just must have been going too fast and flipped his car over like 10 times and like hit the rocks and hit a lot of things, and I don't think anyone survived.
How similar is this though? You have the fat guy blocking the stairs so you can't pass, and you have the SUV blocking the road.
It's almost poetic. It puts me one step closer to believing that maybe there's some meaning in it all. Maybe there's some karmic justice out there.
Or maybe just people create that with their minds.
Or maybe large things are generally bothersome unless they're giant robots.
Yeah, giant robots wouldn't block any paths. They would just open up new ones. Like through the middle of the Earth or around Mars.
Something like that.
Yeah.
So yeah, get to the train station. I get past all the fat people. Pretty much the moment the train door opens, it starts pouring rain.
I had my umbrella because I checked the weather.
Yeah, my umbrella's really going to help me when I'm riding my bike.
Yep, that's your problem. That's why I drove.
See, I don't really mind getting wet. It was just slightly annoying that the weather decided to bust out at that exact moment. It could have waited 5 minutes. It could have done it 5 minutes earlier. The fact that it started right when I got there was the kicker.
Hey, that's what you get.
And now I'm home, and I'm wearing silk, and I'm dry, and I'm happy.
Yeah, I got to take a shower. I didn't take one this morning. I woke up late. And
Yeah, I noticed you woke up late.
I'm real blah.
How are you blah? You went to bed early.
No, I didn't.
Well, you went to your room early.
That's right.
What did you do in there?
I was installing Linuxes on my desktop.
Why?
Well, because
That could have waited.
I don't use my desktop so much anymore.
Oh,
so
wait a minute. So not only could it have waited, but you don't even use that computer.
That's why it's okay
Wait,
to
wait,
install
wait.
Linuxes on it.
Wait. I don't use it anyway, so that's why I forewent the sleep I needed in order to upgrade it.
Yeah, I was just, trying out some distributions, because if I don't use the computer, what does it matter?
We're going to be home this weekend. We got nothing to do except prepare for Kineticon.
I got to do that this weekend instead.
And play Tigris and Euphrates.
Hey.
A bunch of times.
Yep.
And teach Pete how to play Power Grid.
And all the other games we just bought.
Oh!
Oh.
So yes, that was the saga. I kind of want to get to work tomorrow to talk more to this guy about anime because he recognized the names of anime.
Amazing. Someone who is connected to the world.
I mean, previous to this point, the most connected person I had met in my working life, meaning at any job I had ever had, outside of when I worked at that sub shop with Alex back when we lived at RIT.
I bet you there are more connected people at the sub shop, RIT students.
Oh, definitely. But the previously most connected person liked anime a little bit because of his son, and he'd seen Cowboy Bebop and really liked it.
Not the Korean guy?
He knew
Not the metal girl?
Well, the metal girl, I don't work with her. I just know her through work.
Uh-huh.
She's not really a coworker.
Mm-hmm.
And it's not the metal girl, it's the whole metal department. It's kind of cool. It's like this one enclave of cool
just
people.
transfer to the metal department.
I don't really want to work in that department. That's not a technical department. I'd be doing paperwork.
Metal paperwork?
Nah.
Metal work?
They can only listen to the metal when one of the bosses isn't there, which is kind of often. But whenever that boss is there, it's a totally different office, and everyone's just a busy worker bee. Thank God it's Friday. Someone's got a case of the Mondays. Yeah. I can't complain too much. My job's not so bad compared to what my job could be.
My job.
Yeah, fuck you.
Don't work at shitty places. That was how I got. I just refused to work anywhere that wasn't at least moderately cool.
Yeah, part of the issue is IT is a different field from CS.
We got IT guys. One IT guy.
Yeah, one IT guy. There's no more IT openings like that are good.
I think you're smarter than he is, but he knows more about Windows than both of us combined.
Yeah.
So
well,
I don't know if he could get his job.
I applied for a fairly senior position at my company internally because I want to stop doing what I'm doing now. But I'm doing now. I could teach any one of you out there how to do my job in about a week. It's not that tough, but they pay really well, which is kind of weird. But I applied for some big tech position, and the job would be trivial to do. But I don't have any Cisco certs. So we'll see where that goes.
Yep.
I might just get the stupid Cisco cert. It would probably take a week of studying and then pay the whatever $100 to take the stupid test.
That's the thing that really bothers me is you got to pay to take the tests. It would be fine if it was just pay to take classes. Taking the test is, like a minimal fee, just like $10. But it's pay to take the test. It should be you're testing to see if I'm smart enough. Why should I have to pay to take the test?
Because they're
what
not.
You should do
they're
is
not
you should
testing
pay to take the classes.
They're not testing to see if you're smart enough. If you're getting a Cisco certification, you're paying to give them money. Cisco makes a lot of money off of that.
Yep, that's why it's all bullshit.
A lot of people make a lot of money off of that.
We should make a certification, right? Test that only costs like $10 to take, and then just charge money for the class.
That kind of gives me an idea.
And then we'll market it to all the businesses like, hey, this is a real certification. It's not about paying money to a company. It's about determining if your employee actually knows what the fuck they're talking about.
That gives me a much more interesting and fun idea that doesn't require much investment.
Yep.
Why don't we, you and me, write the Geeknights test to certify if you are or are not a useless person or a crappy person or something like that.
The awesome test?
The Are You Awesome test. And we'll administer it online or we'll set something up. And if you pass it, I guess you only get to take it once. Maybe once every year. We could set it up. Then you're officially certified.
The thing is, people, they might use the Wikipedia if we maybe we could administer it at cons at our table or something.
That'd be a pretty good idea.
So people couldn't use the internets. It would just be, Are You Awesome?
In that case, we could have an interview portion.
Ooh.
Yeah. People could walk around. You could even sell the shirt. Ribbons got.
Like if you pass the test, then you get a certified, a button that says certified.
Forget the button. I say we make the test difficult enough to where if people pass it, one, automatically our friend, no questions asked, member of the crew. 2, diploma. 3, t-shirt. Well, yeah, I guess t-shirt.
Yeah. I took this test and all I got was this. I passed a test.
You can't pass 10 tests.
All right.
That's enough of that. So in the news. I'll start first because this has been festering for a long time. I know we have a lot of international listeners, and I know a lot of our international listeners understand the difficulties faced by the American politician and the American people abroad in the last, several years. Well, internally, things are actually heating up, and there's what might be a looming constitutional crisis in the United States.
Uh-huh.
Basically, what it comes down to is that the U.S. government is set up into 3 separate branches that nominally are equal in power, and each one has some control over the other 2. Thus, it is very difficult to actually fully take over the U.S. government, because no matter what, the odds are one of the 3 branches is going to hold out long enough for whoever's in power to lose power or die or whatever, and it generally keeps the system going. Well, Congress has power over the executive branch in a number of ways, and due to some improprieties that have happened in the last several years, Congress has been subpoenaing many people and documents and demanding sworn testimony from members of the executive branch, the president's office. And those people basically gave Congress the finger and said, no, executive privilege, we're not testifying for shit, we're not giving you our documents, die in a fire.
Well, they have to.
Yeah, they do have to.
Or else that's contempt of
So-
Congress.
Now, the deadline is passed, and it's too late it happened. And Congress is
So who's
saying...
going to jail?
Well, we don't know yet. Congress is saying, well, we're probably going to slap you all with contempt. And it looks like the White House might say, under what authority? And
The authority of the Congress of the United States of America.
yeah, but to quote one of my, I have very ambivalent feelings about this
Andrew
quotation.
Jackson.
John Marshall has made his decision. Now let's see him enforce it.
And with his federal marshals, he does.
That doesn't happen so much.
That's
The
because
federal
nobody has testicles. The law totally supports
The
it.
federal marshals didn't really go. Well, they didn't exist back then, I don't think. But they didn't
I
go
don't know if
over
they did or
and
not.
stop Andrew Jackson's Indian genocide.
No, they didn't. But they could have stopped him if they really wanted to. They just didn't have...
How? What? John Marshall is going to go stand in front of him on the battlefield and just shoot him?
No, I don't think he would have.
I think he would have.
Well, Andrew Jackson would have, but no one else would have.
Yeah, but it was Andrew Jackson. That's why it happened.
I'm sure they could have had someone arrest them. You know, if the president
What?
commits a
He
crime,
would've shot him.
someone arrests him.
He had an army with him.
All right, yeah, ready? If the president right now, let's say George Bush right now went and robbed a bank, right?
All right.
Someone arrests him. Who would do that?
Probably no one.
Someone arrests him. He goes to jail.
Not so much.
He's not above the law. He follows the same laws as everyone else.
You'd have to be impeached first.
No, you would get arrested and go to jail.
And then you would have to be convicted in the impeachment proceedings. And then...
No,
they-
impeachment would just be to make him no longer the president.
Oh, yeah,
he
but
would be the president from
Scott,
jail.
Impeachment just means you're bringing the charges. You then have to go through the whole process.
No,
and
I'm
kick
saying
them
it's
out.
like if he robbed a bank and didn't get impeached, he could theoretically be in jail, guilty of robbing bank, but still be president.
I'm not going to argue because I don't want to extend the news long, but that's not what would happen.
I think that could happen.
You continue to think
I don't
that.
think it would happen, but I think that's the way I read it. I'm not a lawyer, but
What clauses would you cite in this assessment, Scott?
law number 1, rob bank, go to jail. Law number 2, Constitution. If the Congress wants to remove someone from office because they did X, Y, or Z, they do X, Y, and Z. Well, A, B, and C.
Yes, what I was saying was they can't do anything to him until they remove him from office.
I think you can...
Nah.
Just
Nah.
because someone's in office doesn't make them immune to going to jail for crimes.
All right, anyway, I'll just let that stand.
Yep.
This is going to be a big issue because it looks like no one's really sure how to proceed. Congress is going to do what they're going to do, and the White House is probably just going to continue to ignore them. And the courts are going to have to decide. And no one can really say where the court will swing. This could end in a big uproar followed by nothing, or it could end in the possible arrest of several high members of the United States government.
Generally, because how many times has this happened already in the past 8 years where it was, oh my God, oh my God, oh my God, and then nothing's changed.
Things did change. Scooter Libby is going to jail.
Yeah, but that's Scooter Libby. Who cares?
And those investigations are still ongoing. And a bunch of other people have gone to jail for things with the Abramov scandal. It's all still happening just behind the scenes. The press doesn't cover it a lot because it's very boring.
Yeah, and it's not really changing anything that much. We're still in the same shit we've always been in.
How so? You don't even pay attention to politics. You don't even know
There's
what's
a
going on.
reason for that, because shit don't change.
But things do change.
What's
just
changed?
slowly over time.
Too slowly to make a difference.
It's making a difference now. The presidency is having less and less actual power to do what they're doing.
Because we voted for Democrats in Congress.
It's not just that, because the Democrats don't have the power to just change things.
No, but the Republicans no longer have the power to keep doing more bad things.
Yeah.
And that's why...
Well, the issue at stake here is that they were doing the things they were doing anyway because the presidency was just doing it.
Yep.
And Congress didn't really have the power to stop him the way things were going. Now, Congress is saying, all right, we're stopping you. And he said, you can't.
Oh, it's not going to work.
Well, we don't know. If that's not going to work, Scott, then this is going to be a big crisis because a bunch of key people are going to go to jail. Otherwise, it is going to work. And then, like you said, nothing changes. In which case, what you just said was wrong. So which is it?
I think it's not going to be. I really don't
What
care.
do you think it's going to... That's such a cop-out.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah.
Because really, either way it goes, it's not really gonna bother me.
You're saying that you were excited about Fitzmas. I don't think
Not
you're saying
really.
that you would. Yes, you were.
Nah.
You acted like you were.
I didn't
Are you
really
gonna
care.
say that you wouldn't care if half of the president's cabinet or his advisors all went to jail?
I'm
and
saying
then there
there's
were
no way
impeachment
that's gonna
proceedings?
happen.
All right, so then he's gonna get away with it.
And you know what? Until it does happen, I don't care. Basically,
Okay.
everything before the news that says everyone goes to jail is just BS news. If it's just something might happen. I don't care about something might happen news. Remember I was talking before about the countdowns and the video game websites? I don't care. Until there's a news, like people are in jail or something's changed or there's a huge deal, I don't care. I don't care about what might be. I don't care about what could be. I don't care about something maybe happening. I care about happenings. That's all I care about.
Now, what I would say is that because of that, you often ignore a lot of news or a lot of things out there, and as a result, you end up having a very narrow worldview in that you don't know a lot about a lot of things
That don't affect me.
that it might be useful to know about them in order to have a greater understanding of the way politics and the economy and everything interact as a whole.
But I don't need to know about those things. Nor do I care. I need to know about geeky things.
Okay.
I've decided that it's just not worth it to pay attention to all that bullshit, because all it does is detract from my everyday life. All I really want to do in life.
How does it detract from your everyday life to be more knowledgeable about the processes in the government of the
Every
country you
minute I
live in?
spend thinking about that bullshit is one less minute of geeky awesomeness. So I'm going to maximum. All I want, see if let's say the government was just running perfectly and smoothly with no problems, right? Which is what I would want. Then I would pretty much spend all my days doing geeky awesomeness and not thinking about.
You
the
realize
government.
that's one more step toward being a nerd because you're narrowing your knowledge of the world willingly.
Hey, I know enough about
No,
what's
you
going
don't.
on.
You know, I remember, and I hate to bring this up on the show, but I do want to point out that there was a fairly heated debate a long time ago in the forums that predated this, where Scott asserted seriously that the Romans got the ideas for their battle tactics and their swords and their armor from the Knights of the Middle Ages.
Hey, so
And it took quite a bit of convincing to show him that that was not the case.
that's one problem I always had in history class is that they would always teach you about these different points in history. Like, we're going to teach you about this, we're going to teach you about that. No one ever in any history class I ever took told me what order all these different parts of history happened in.
You know those numbers that they occasionally threw out?
No,
Usually,
that's the thing, is that in all my years of school, like, our entire school system had a thing where there was absolutely no memorization ever.
oh, I'm not saying memorization, but they'd still say
No,
occasionally.
they would just, they'd say years don't worry about what year things happened in. That was the way my school taught things.
Well, one, that's
My entire Trumbull public school system, because they wanted to get away from that, stereotypical history class. Like, what year did X happen in? What year did Y
one
happen
that seems
in?
silly, and two, I highly doubt that even if they didn't say years, that how could you have not understood some basic level of what came before what?
They never told us, ever.
So then you're saying you didn't learn anything about the Middle Ages?
And also, even if, let's say I didn't even know the Middle Ages happened right now, wouldn't really affect my life. I'd still be all right.
Yeah, and that's why I'm saying that you have a very narrow and somewhat sad worldview as a result.
No, my worldview is pretty awesome. It's better than the vast majority of people on this earth.
You're stepping toward becoming a nerd.
I don't need to know these complicated details of things. I just know basically what's going on, and that's good enough for me.
However, I would say that your lack of general knowledge of the world often leaves you in a situation where you can't effectively argue your points because you can't draw analogies or parallels with other people regarding the events you're trying to argue about currently.
Like what?
I'm not going to get into that now.
Uh-huh. That's what I thought.
Well, I'll say it like this. In general, when we argue in the front row crew, among our friends, it is exceedingly rare that anyone agrees with you on any points.
People agree with me all the time. It's just when they agree with me, there usually isn't an argument. So if there's an argument,
But
it's probably something to disagree on.
when has there been a time in the past, 7 years where there wasn't an argument? At least 2 or 3 in a given day.
Oh. We didn't have any arguments yesterday.
Anyway, we've gone on about that for a while. So what's your news?
My news is that some people are yet again bringing up the bullshit rumor that there's going to be some sort of Led Zeppelin reunion something.
But John Bonham's dead.
Yeah, well, the rumor always is that his son will play the drums instead of him because he's dead.
But it's not him.
I know. But, you know.
I don't even know. I assume at least some of them are still alive. I stopped paying attention to Led Zeppelin a long time ago.
Led Zeppelin consists of Jimmy Page, John Paul Jones, the deceased John Bonham, and Robert Plant.
Okay,
John Bonham is the drummer, so only the drummer is dead.
All right.
And his son knows how to play the drums,
See, I wasn't
and his
sure,
son is alive.
I wasn't sure who was still alive.
Only John Bonham is dead. He died, I think, when I was born.
Yeah.
And they haven't been together since he died. And they're the greatest rock band ever. And people always rumor that they're going to have a reunion because, goddamn, would the tickets to that sell out stupidly fast and it costs like $1 billion on eBay.
Funny how you say sell out.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. And, well, the rumor, yet again, is false, of course. But there
what?
was one very funny thing is that someone went up and asked Robert Plant about it. And he said, this is funny, you ready? He said... Plant insisted he hadn't heard anything about the rumored Zeppelin reunion and jokingly added, quote, "If there was one, then there wouldn't be enough doctors to support it." I thought that was pretty funny.
It seems like there's been a lot of speculative rumor mongering lately on, well, Dig.
Yeah. Generally, I think that's, Dig is too democratic and Slashdot is not democratic enough, and I'm not going to talk about that again.
Anyway, it is time for none other than the things of the day.
Ooh.
So apparently, in January of 1992, a storm caused a cargo container full of, well, I'll just leave them as unnamed objects, into the ocean where they promptly scattered and disappeared into the ocean currents.
All right.
These items have for the past 15 years been floating about the oceans of the world. Periodically, chunks of them have been making landfall. And it's kind of a cool, funny story. So it's 30,000 floating rubber duckies. Apparently, they're over the last 15 years, they have eventually become bleached white. Some of them sunk. Many of them were frozen in ice in the Arctic for a very long time as they slowly made their way back to warmer places.
It's kind of weird. Like, if they all started in the same place, wouldn't the ocean currents take them to generally the same place?
And
like,
they did.
At least the majority of them.
They did.
Oh, okay.
There's a flotilla of them that has been journeying nearly 17,000 miles. It crossed the Arctic Ocean. It's been all over the world. And apparently, it's heading toward Britain shortly.
Ah. So is it going to hit any beaches or something eventually?
Why, yes, it looks like it is. I'm not going to go into the details of where it's going to hit because we already talked forever. But this is a pretty interesting story that you'd probably like to check out. And apparently there's a bounty. The company that lost them says that if you find one, they'll give you $100 if you give it back to them.
Well, if you find the whole flotilla, just freaking get a scoop, send them back, most of them, and keep one.
Yeah. Well, apparently there's a few on eBay right now that sold for like 500 pounds, and they're kind of collector's items.
What? I just take a rubber ducky and bleach it and freeze it and unfreeze it and then sell it on eBay.
Yeah, actually, I thought about that quite a bit.
Oh.
I didn't say anything on the show because I was thinking about doing that.
Yeah, well, let's do it. What are people going to do? Say about it.
I don't know.
They won't be able to... There's no certificate of authenticity. Just be like, hey, I found this on the beach. I think it's one of those ones. And put some sand on it, and you're good to go.
Actually, one cool thing that came out of this is there are groups of scientists that study the ocean currents of the world. And they've been keeping track of every time these things made landfall to kind of chart the ocean currents that pushed them around over the last 15 years.
Mm-hmm. Why didn't they do this on purpose as a scientific experiment, then?
I think they do things like that on their own. This just happened to be a thing, so they might as well pay attention to it.
Oh, sounds good. All right, my news is equally trivial to that. If you've ever watched Initial D, or if you know anything about cars, you might know that there is a car that exists that called the Nissan Skyline GTR.
It's a pretty badass car. I wouldn't want to own one just because it's kind of useless to me, but pretty cool.
Yes, basically this car, in short, was made in Japan only, is not street legal in the United States. However, Many people get them brought to Canada, then they fix them up so that they are street legal in the United States, then they bring them into the United States.
That costs a lot of money.
They haven't made these cars in a very long time, so you're buying like a car that's many years old. You're not buying a new car here. You know, most of them are modified, and basically the thing about this car is that it is heavily computerized. Like literally, driving this car is the same as driving like Gran Turismo. The computer keeps you from skidding off and all sorts of stuff, and it even shows you like G-forces, and it's really, really high tech, and it turns a mediocre driver into an amazing driver. I mean, you're not gonna go win the rally with this thing because those guys, just Colin McRae is still gonna kick your ass or whatever, but you're going to beat all your friends if you buy this car. Pretty much guaranteed if they don't have one.
Well,
unless one of your friends is secretly an awesome driver.
Or if you, much like Nakazato,
are a choke artist. Yes. But this car is a freaking awesome, amazing car that is greatly coveted by ricers and non-ricers everywhere.
So what you're thinking today is that this car exists?
Well, no.
Because I knew that.
There's been people talking for a long time that, they're going to remake the car, they're going to bring it to the U.S., something, and it's never really happened.
You know what? Probably going to happen right around when Led Zeppelin comes back together.
Yeah, well, at the Goodwood Festival of Speed. The Goodwood Festival of Speed is basically the world's biggest, most baddest car show. You know, you go to local car shows, some guys bring out their classic cars, whatever. Goodwood is like that for the whole world of amazingness. And they saw a GTR there, one of the new awesome ones that isn't available yet. So, and there's a picture of it right here for you to ogle. It's got a bra on the front, I think, covering up some secrets, but that's definitely a GTR. There's no mistaking it. You just compare it to what the old GTR looks like, and you're like, yep, that's what that car is.
Yeah, it definitely has something in common with my first car. It has a bra on it, covering something up.
Yeah.
However, in my case, it wasn't so much secrets, but
dents.
Nah, faded paint and a rust spot.
Yeah, this car doesn't have to worry about that.
Yeah.
But yeah, if I ever, I don't know, get more monies, or if this car comes out and my car happens to be dead, maybe like by the time my car dies, this car will be out and like a little bit old. I can get a used one or something. I don't know. It's definitely a very desirable vehicle. Mostly because it's so nerdy with its advanced computer systems. All right. For Thursdays, we've been doing kind of topics, I think. Oh, I don't know, maybe not.
I think they've been okay.
They've been all right.
I think the ad topic, the ad problem was that the shows we planned to do were always kind of lame and we just filled it in. And we'd always, like Wednesday night, come up with the show we were actually doing every week.
Yep. So I tried to think of something, because people have been talking that me and Rim do better shows when we disagree. And most of the shows we've been doing for the past many months have been all agree shows, where we're like, yeah, this, yeah. And I wanted to pick something that we slightly disagree on.
Yeah, it's part of the reason I picked the news I picked, is we decided to make the show as adversarial as possible.
Yep. So, I figured...
So Scott came up with this dumbass idea for a topic.
What? It's not a dumb idea.
It's crap.
You suck. You're just trying to be adversarial.
Your mom.
Yeah.
All right.
So, there was that recent news story about that pro wrestler who, like, killed his family and then killed himself or whatever. And I don't know. I didn't read the story, and nor do I like pro wrestling. I could do a show on why I hate pro wrestling.
It's weird because that story came up unrelatedly in a discussion about autism that I was reading on Farm.
Autism?
Yeah. Don't
Wow.
ask. I don't know if it's
Was that
true.
the story where they cured the autism in the rats?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I didn't read the articles about this murder. I just knew about it because someone referenced it, and they claimed that the daughter or whoever was killed, in addition to all this, had mental problems, and that might have been part of the reason.
Oh. Well, anyway, I saw headlines over people's shoulders on newspapers on the train, and it was like trying to link, the steroid use of the pro wrestling guy to the murder somehow, and I was like, what the fuck? How does steroids link to a murder?
Well, actually, it is possible that it could have been a contributing factor if it is true that he was taking steroids, which we don't know.
I'm pretty sure they found steroids in the house. I know that much.
Yeah.
And
what
pro wrestler does not take steroids?
There aren't too many people who keep anabolic steroids around, just as a decoration.
Yep. And the steroids being recently in the news, in combination with us recently discussing many times the relationship between good sport and spectator sport, I think we should discuss steroids and sports. Because
Yeah?
I know Rim's opinion differs slightly from mine.
Well, the thing is, my opinion is fairly complicated, and
Yes.
I don't have an answer opinion. I feel this way and this way and this way and this way.
Yep. Well, let me summarize the situation here. You have a sport, and a sport is a competition of athletic ability in some fashion, you know? And basically, in a perfect sport, you know, as if a sport was like a German board game, a perfect sport, whoever had the best physical prowess and skill in that particular area would win, and whoever had less physical prowess and skill would win less. They
See,
would-
now, I'd step back a bit, and I don't think it necessarily has to be a physical competition.
It's a sport, it's a physical competition, otherwise it's a game.
I don't make that differentiation.
Well, we're not going to argue about semantics.
No, you're not going to let me pull up the definition in the on the dictionary?
If you want to talk about sport, then, like, sport could be, like, all sorts of, you know, the other definitions of sport.
Yes, like just having fun. You can make sport of something.
Exactly, and that's not the kind of sport I'm talking
But
about.
it's perfectly valid.
Yes, but that's obviously when you say this is. God damn it! I'm gonna talk about this now.
Nah.
When some words in the English language have multiple definitions, right? Like for example, wake. The word wake could mean what, you know, that thing before a funeral where you look at the body.
Yeah.
It could also mean wake up in the morning.
Yeah.
Right? If I say, oh, it's time to wake up. Obviously, I'm using one definition and not the other. You can't make a semantic argument claiming that I was using the other definition of wake.
However, in the case of sport, it's very much relevant because you use the word and the definition you arbitrarily chose in order to just eliminate all these other things that other people
Fine,
might
maybe
consider
instead
sports.
of using the word sport, I should say athletic competition every time.
Yeah, that's fine.
No.
Or
Anyway. So
I think the issue I take, because I agree with define a term and then use sport from then on, and that's fine, because you can use that definition of sport. You can pick a definition and go with it. That's how civilized people argue. The issue I take is that a lot of people call things that aren't athletic non-sport as a way of trivializing them.
No. Just because I don't say that something's trivial because it's not a sport. I do recognize
however,
that many
most-
people do make the argument like that's not a sport. Like cricket's not a sport, trying to say it's lesser than football.
I wouldn't say
somehow.
many people. I'd say most people.
Yes.
There is definitely a negative connotation of game as opposed to sport in the wider American community.
Yes, I do
as a
not-
result, I will not use the definition you were using of sport because I don't want to play into that.
But see, that's exactly why I use my definition of sport to separate things that are physical from the non-physical. Because a game like chess, you know, is not a sport. It's a game you play on a table. It's a mental
yet-
thing as opposed to a physical thing. That's
but-
the reason there's two different words: game and sport.
But yet, I would put forth that in the context of the argument we are about to have and the situation at hand, the differentiation doesn't matter because the exact same arguments can be applied to non-physical activities.
That is.
Case in point, drugs to increase performance mentally during a chess competition.
Yeah, I guess. All right.
Or I have often been known to drink copious amounts of Red Bull before an important board game or some Counter-Strike.
All right. We'll go do with that now. But basically, the thing is, I've discovered
1
recently.
point for Rim.
Yes, I've discovered recently that if you have a sport and you want the sport to be as fair and as true a competition as possible. That's like the spirit within me says, let's have the real sport. You know, like if you have some sort of, like if someone makes a bad call, even if it's for the team that I'm not rooting for, you know, in their favor, or if it's in my team's favor, I don't like a bad call because I want the sport to be fair and perfect in some way. I want
Unless
it to
it's
be,
hockey.
Unless it's hockey. You know, I want it to be a fair game, and I want the best man to win, or the best team, or the best woman, or the best side needs to win.
Yep. Now here I think is the biggest issue at stake. We're saying the best, and you're saying a pure sport, but at that point, that means that you have to analyze whatever you're trying to test. Figure out what is the thing you were trying to test in this competition.
Yep.
Are you trying to test purely athletic ability, purely skill, a mixture of the two?
Well, you know, if you're using hockey, you're testing ability to skate quickly, skate dexterously, to handle the puck, dexterously, to bump into people and, you know,
Yep.
have strategic maneuvering of your guys, the
But-
skill of your goalie at blocking pucks.
You're also testing teamwork, you're testing tactics, you're
Yep.
testing the system that allowed the team to buy the players they wanted.
Yep. You're testing all sorts of things, and whoever passes the combination of those tests in you know the greatest fashion should be the winner. The problem is when you have a sport that is so perfectly tuned, it becomes very quickly boring to spectate. Case in point, Formula One. For many years, Michael Schumacher, the greatest driver of motor vehicles to ever live, was an F1 racer. And he won just about every time. He had the best car. He was the best driver. He would start most of the races in the front. He would take off. Nobody could catch him. And it was a very well-tuned sport. The best person won, and the second best guy came in second place just about every time for many, many years. And it was boring as all hell to watch.
Yep. Well, to take hockey, or actually, I think baseball's a better example.
Baseball's a great example.
I think baseball suffers from it the most, and I think this is the sole reason why I dislike baseball, because I realized that I would like baseball a lot more if this weren't the case.
Yep.
But baseball, like hockey, the actual competition, what it was testing on a base level, was a bunch of things. Teamwork, the ability of batters, the ability of pitchers, the ability of base coaches, the tactics of the team, the makeup of the team, the crowd's effect on the team, all these sorts of things, dealing with conditions. And over time, as baseball was played and played and played and played, one by one, these issues became moot. The tactics of baseball are, at this point, 99% perfected. It's obvious what to do in any given situation.
Yep, the only variable is if you have some sort of incredible player in a certain spot in a certain situation, then you might want to try something risky. But other
even
than that,
then,
you could just write a book that says, if this is the situation in your baseball game, this inning, these players on base, this kind of person at bat, then do this. And you would be just as good as most major league managers with that book.
So it came down now to mostly the ability of the players, physically.
Yep.
But then as time went on, human bodies start to peak. There's a point at which a human body is at, as far as we know, its maximum potential to do a given task.
You have the best possible baseball playing body someone could possibly have. Maybe you could be a little bit better, but you're better enough that you're just incredible. And
so it gets to the point where the best pitchers are all mostly identical in that there's not much competition left. The margins between one player and another player are so slight physically that the actual outcome of the game ends up coming down to the margins and the chance and the randomness as opposed to the skill of any given player, because the skills are all so similar.
Granted, that's why we have star players. They're just the difference between a star player and a not star player is actually pretty small. The thing is, they're just that much better, than all the other people on average, that those people do make the difference in beating chance and helping the team win. But if you take even like the shittiest Major League Baseball pitcher, there's so many light years beyond all the non-Major League pitchers. They're just amazing. And then they're just not stars because someone else is a tiny bit more amazing. And that tiny bit more amazingness is what makes them win and the other guy not win.
Now, as a result, there's no surprises in baseball other than the occasional, he dropped the ball and something bad happened, which is relatively rare. Nothing exciting happens in baseball anymore. I mean, even home runs. Look, back in the day, home runs were relatively rare.
The fences were way back, and it was really hard to hit it all that way.
And also, I mean, the science of training a human to swing a bat was not where it is today.
Yep.
There was a lot of Babe Ruth was a big old fat guy.
Yep, he sure was.
Nowadays,
an amazing fat guy, but a fat guy nonetheless.
The science of training someone to swing a bat is so advanced that home runs are just trivial. They happen often. And
like once a game, at least.
Yeah, and they're not exciting anymore.
Also, the science of pitching and throwing a ball fast and with accuracy has progressed so much. If Babe Ruth had to face today's pitchers, he wouldn't do so well. He'd be in big trouble. And the only reason the batters we have today if they were back in Babe Ruth's time, they would have hit a home run every time they were up. Just because pitching has changed so much, and it's so perfect now.
So because the physicality has gotten so good, we're left to rely on the tactics. But the tactics are already known because the game itself is fundamentally very simple.
And as a result, in the end, baseball is not exciting to watch because you don't see things happen like someone dropping the ball, someone throwing to the wrong base, a suicide squeeze. It's basically, by the book, you know exactly what everyone's going to do, and it all just comes down to these very, very slight things that are not exciting to watch or so interesting. It's just, they're playing the exact game exactly the way it should be played every time.
Case in point, I enjoy watching two 12-year-olds play pickle much more than I enjoy watching an actual Major League Baseball game.
Yeah, and I think this is also why a lot of people like watching college football. They like watching college basketball and college hockey and college baseball more and more and more. And some Major League sports is starting to stagnate in their popularity. Because if you go watch college football, people are doing all sorts of funky plays. Not every player on the field is the master. All sorts of crazy stuff happens all the time. Whereas in Major League Football, it's, except unless you ever, no one tries funky plays because you're not allowed to. And you pretty much have to do everything by the book. And sometimes there's exciting things, mostly because some teams out there suck. And just because football is a game in which crazy things can happen despite amazingness. But it's not as entertaining as college football as the game goes. So, because of this, some people decided that to make the game more exciting, to stand out from the crowd in which everyone is awesome, it takes some steroids to gain that slight advantage, to go from the better than most of the world to slightly better than everyone else playing. And people didn't like that because now it's sort of unfair again. We tried to make it so fair that we made it unexciting. So people tried to make it more exciting and thus made it less fair.
But at this point, and here's the interesting thing, taking the steroids. All right, you're doing an artificial thing to your body to make it perform better, even though I don't think it's that much of a step beyond a lot of the other semi-artificial things or training regimes that people go through.
Yep.
But what if someone is born who has a genetic defect that causes their body to create excess testosterone that gives a similar effect to taking artificial testosterone? If you say that people aren't allowed to modify themselves with steroids, then what you're basically saying is that now the only true determiner of skill in baseball is going to be genetics, and the genetic freaks who have an advantage purely based on their genes are the ones who will excel because they're going to be stronger than other people.
Yep.
But at the same time, testosterone and that sort of thing can be dangerous. Are you going to encourage people to do something dangerous? But yet, what if someone is willing to take that risk? And it's a complicated issue.
Yeah, well, first, I want to say I do think people should be allowed to do to themselves whatever they want as long as it doesn't hurt anyone else. So
Yeah,
if you want to take steroids, you go nuts.
You did argue that people shouldn't be allowed to commit suicide.
That's true. That's the one thing you can't do.
I disagree with that fundamentally.
Whatever. We'll talk about that another time. But while you can do anything you want, it goes back to the question of what are we testing? And it seems that people, at least in sports, have generally agreed that, in the Olympics, we're testing the limits and abilities of the natural human body. What can you do with your natural, unmodified human body simply by training and practicing? How far can you take it without, using drugs or a robot suit or special equipment or anything like that?
Now, at this point, what's the definition of human? I mean, all right, normal, like you and me, born, we train our body as much as it can be trained without chemicals or anything, whatever, and then we, compete in the competition. What if someone is born genetically superior? Because at that point, you're not testing the ability so much as of the person, the individual athlete. You're testing their genetics plus the science of training them.
Yep.
So, all right, not allowed to take steroids. Am I allowed to engage in genetic modifications to get the same effect?
That's a good question that nobody's bothered with yet because it hasn't happened.
All right, say they ban that. You can't modify your genes artificially. What if I set up a generation upon generation of people and breed them, with their consent, to create people that would have the same effect as if I had done it artificially?
I think people already have no problem with that. As you can see from history, there have been many, sons and daughters of existing athletes who've become athletes yet again, and then their sons and daughters also become athletes, and they get better or worse over the generations.
But
there are many sports families that have bred for sporting.
Oh, but I mean very specifically and scientifically breeding for athleticism over many generations. How is that different from doing it artificially?
I think it just comes down to the fact that, over the years that we've played the sport, everyone who's played it has been not, until recently, I guess the past decade or so, not artificially modifying their bodies. So if you want to be able to compare, fairly the achievements of the people in the sport today to the people in the sport of yesteryear, then they have to do the same exact thing.
But the rules are different anyway. A lot of things have changed in all the sports over the years, in addition to that. And also, steroids have been around for a long time.
Yep, steroids have been around for a long time.
And there just weren't tests before that were easily available.
Yeah, but people weren't using steroids as a performance enhancer
Actually,
for more than a couple decades.
I have seen the argument that it's not that people are using the steroids that is making the issue. It's that they're using the steroids in conjunction with very scientific training regimens, and that the training regimens alone account for a lot of the ability we see today.
Uh-huh.
That, I mean, the science of training an Olympic athlete is immense. It's kind of like F1, where it's almost more about the scientists training this person or the engineers building and designing this car than it is about the driver.
Yep. Oh, the driver matters a whole lot in F1, though. But yeah, there's basically, it comes down to what are you testing? And we've decided that, in sports like baseball, that, or at least the commissioners and those sorts of people have decided they are testing a non-chemically modified human being's ability to hit a ball and throw a ball and run around bases.
Fine, then I'll use genetics like a coordinator in Gundam Seed to create the uber baseball baby. His arms are going to be an extra 6 inches long, super muscles. He's going to have short squat legs because he doesn't need to run. He'll always hit home runs.
I guess that would be fair. I mean, it's not an issue that's come up.
All right, so that's it. Then why ban steroids if we're not banning that? And also, notice how we ban specific performance enhancers, but not other ones. What's the line of performance enhancer? Is Red Bull a performance enhancer? There's clear clinical evidence that taurine is a performance enhancer.
Yep. I think the part of the actual reason...
I said performance enhancer a bunch of times.
Yes, it would be difficult to actually convince me that, the sporting commissioners are actually thinking about this game theory type perspective that I'm thinking about.
That's the only thing that bothers me. I don't care.
They are obviously against steroids because they don't want to promote this sort of bad behavior. They like their sports to appear clean, and they want to promote their athletes as good role models.
See, now,
and all that sort of stuff.
Notice Scott said appear. I don't think they care at all. They would go steroids 100% if that's where the money was. But I think they see the negative public perception and also the negative pressure from the government, and they don't want to go in those waters because they'd make less money or they'd get regulated.
Yep.
I think that if the people had no problem with steroids and the government didn't care, they'd jump on the steroids like that.
Yeah, because, I mean, if they would jump on the steroids and then basically they would be able to increase the entertainment value of their sport for a time because some of the players would be on steroids and some would refuse, but they would still be better than all the other players in the world. And you would then again have a larger, canyon of ability, and the steroid players there would be amazing plays happening again because of the gap of skill between the steroid users and the non-steroid users.
But at the same time,
everyone became a steroid user, then the sport would be boring again.
At the same time, that's definitely a stopgap, and a poor one at that, because it seems like the fundamental issue is that we have maxed out every aspect of baseball or a lot of games.
Basketball.
I mean, like most German or most American board games.
Yep.
I'd say most board games in general.
Most games, athletic or not, have been maxed out.
Yes. So once a game is maxed out, other than stopgaps to force, like to make players have more options, like extending the game or something to try to make it more interesting, why not just change the game to add more complexity or add more points of contention in other places? Like, take baseball, normal game, but instead of the 4 bases, have a branch network of bases going out the field. Or something like that. Multiple paths home, and a lot more decision-making on the fly on the field.
Well, I think 2 reasons for that. First of all...
Traditionalists. You know what? All ancient board games sucked. All old card games, almost without fail, are terrible. The game theory and science has advanced to the point that we can construct better games that are clearly better on all levels, tactically, strategically.
Yep. Also, if you're making millions of dollars because people are coming to see your sport, if you change that sport drastically, I mean, changing it a little bit so it resembles the current sport enough that people still understand what's going on.
Hockey does that
right.
a lot.
But if you change the sport dramatically, like you basically completely change the rules, like Blurns Ball or something, if you suddenly change it to Blurns Ball, people wouldn't come to see it because it's not something they're familiar with. It's not something they know the rules of. Like, every time someone tries to come out with, like, slam ball or speed ball or arena football, or those things don't get a lot of attention. I mean, you can't even get attention for soccer in the U.S. because a lot of people just don't know how it's played or what the rules are. They don't care.
See, now I think this is going to change over time because the sports are less and less popular among...
Except for football. American football is still stupidly popular and getting more. But all the
No,
other
no, no. I'm
sports-
saying in the long run, I think kids growing up are going to be less and less interested in sports, particularly because there's so much more entertainment on the internet.
Yeah, that's possible.
And I could see new sports becoming popular in the next 20 to 30 years.
Yep. The problem is again, a lot of our new sports, right? If we assume geeks are going to inherit the earth, it'll be things like Counter-Strike and Puerto Rico and whatever. And those things, remember, are perfect games, basically, of tests of skill. And we've basically maxed out a lot of those things. I mean, Fatality is just about maxed out FPSing.
Yeah.
There's just not too many of him right now. There's one of him. And there's some other people just as good as him who aren't as famous, but they're out there. And South Korea has maxed out StarCraft completely. And me, Rim, and Alex might have maxed out Puerto Rico.
We have to test it. We have a theory. We think we've solved Puerto Rico.
Maybe.
Well, we'd been close to it for a long time.
Yeah.
But now we finally hit a situation where every time we play, even trying different permutations, we can see a clear path to who is going to win based on the first round of play.
Yep. But anyway, none of these are going to be very good spectator sports. And I mean, if you want to make a good spectator sport, you pretty much, the other end of the spectrum is the pro wrestling. It's not a sport anymore. It's just a show. There's no sport left. It's just designed to be appealing to spectators with nothing else.
I think you could make interesting sports. I mean, things like, take paintball as an example. I think paintball could have been an amazing spectator sport.
It could be.
The problem is, paintball, as it is played by paintball people, is incredibly boring and lame, and it's just like this stupidly rules-obsessed capture-the-flag crap game.
Yep.
It's not fun. I've played it a bunch of times. But say we took Airsoft or whatever, or Counter-Strike, which is a fun game, but not the greatest spectator game, and we made a sport that was Counter-Strike in the real world. You play paintball where it's interesting, go get the terrorists. And they just film these athletes who train like Navy SEALs or SAS agents with guns, and they go around and they do these things as a sport.
Yep. I think the problems with that, you got to think about all these crazy factors, like, how easy is it to film that for television? Like football and hockey and baseball, they were designed, or even if they weren't designed originally, like football works so well with television. It's a big, wide rectangle. The TV camera takes a big, wide rectangle. You can see everything that's going on.
Hockey, not so much, though.
Hockey, not so much, really.
That's
Baseball,
probably, I'd say
less.
that might be a big factor in why hockey is less popular. It's just that people can't watch it on TV.
I think that's a big factor in why football is so popular in the U.S., because it is designed for television, like, perfectly. Watching it on television is better than being there. I've been there many times.
Yeah.
Unless you're really close and just the right seats, you're not going to see a lot of stuff.
God,
and you always look up to the video screen for the replays.
The last NFL game we went to, we walked out halfway through.
Well, that was the worst football game I've ever
Well,
been
not
to.
only was it it was a particularly boring game of football.
Yeah, it was a really bad game.
And it was like 1 degree
I've
outside.
been to good football games.
Yeah.
It is worth it to go to a good football game, but not that one. Good God.
Even then, I'd rather watch them on TV.
Yeah. But yeah, I think what we have to do is you have to come up with some sort of new sports that are basically things that it'll take humans many, many years to get really good at, even if we use performance-enhancing equipments of all sorts. That way, it'll still be a good game in which the best team wins or the best side wins, depending whoever has the most skill and ability. But since we haven't figured it out yet, and we won't figure it out for a very long time, all sorts of interesting and exciting plays will still happen because people haven't figured it out yet, and people mess up, and people will try crazy things now and then, and it'll be way cool. And then when that gets boring, we have to come up with something new again.
Now, see, if kids keep having shorter attention spans, which I can definitely feel my attention span shortening the way I use media as time has gone on.
Mine is so short now compared to what it used to be.
But if this keeps up, I could see a time where we come up with a new sport, a new game. It immediately becomes popular and successful, and it's the sport that everyone's watching. And then it gets maxed out, and they have the final tournament of who is the best, and then everyone just forgets it, drops it, and there's a new sport.
That could possibly happen.
I see that's the only way forward, is you have to drop a sport or a game pretty much at the falling edge of the curve of its perfection. Like once it is solved, and once it is solved to the point to where people can, like most of the players playing, have it solved and know exactly what to do, and the game becomes predictable, you drop it and move on. That's why we don't play most of the board games we own. We solved them, we figured out what they were at their core, and they were no longer interesting.
Yeah, we didn't continue to just keep playing them year after year to see, who was the best, because we were all equally the best. We all solved the puzzle. It all just comes down to the slight bit of randomness, Like in baseball, the weather, if two equal baseball teams play at the same field and there's no, the factors that determine who's going to win are going to be the weather and
the random bird flying in front of a pitch.
Yeah, all maybe some dust getting kicked up here and there. The umpire making a bad call. All these sorts of things you can't control are what's going to be the determining factor. And that doesn't make for a very fun thing to watch.
Well, at least not for people like us.
Yeah, you might as well roll a 6-sided dice and see what side comes up.
Die is the singular of dice.
I know.
It bothers me profoundly.
That's why I do it.
Nah, I don't think so. I think you just forget.
Also, because I don't like the word die. I like to say dice all the time.
Well, then always use it in the plural and you'll be okay.
I just,
All right, we went on forever. I think we're done.
Yeah.
This has been Geeknights with Rim and Scott. Special thanks to DJ Pretzel for the opening music.
Be sure to visit our website at www.frontrowcrew.com, where you'll find show notes, links, our awesome forum, a link to our Frapper map, and links to all the RSS feeds.
We say feeds plural because Geeknights airs 4 nights a week, covering 4 different brands of geekery. Mondays are science and technology. Tuesdays, we have video games, board games, and RPGs. Wednesdays are anime, manga, comic nights. And Thursdays are the catch-alls for various rants and tomfoolery.
You can send us feedback by email to geeknights@frontrowcrew.com. Or you can send audio feedback via Audio. Just click the link that says Send Me an Audio on the right side of our website.
If you like what you hear, you can catch the last 100 episodes in iTunes or in your favorite podcatcher. For the complete archives, visit the website, which has everything.
Geeknights is distributed under a Creative Commons Attribution Non-Commercial Share-alike 2.5 license. This means you can do whatever you want with it as long as you give us credit, don't make money, and share it in kind. Geeknights is recorded live with no studio and no audience. But unlike those other late shows, it's actually recorded at night.